Deep in the woods of North America, the mighty moose is facing some rough challenges.
Which would suggest to me that this moose has obviously lost a lot of blood.
This episode will get down and dirty as we discover what is killing off our beautiful moose and how the killing began. I do warn you though, this episode is not for the faint of heart and features no living animals and lots of gore. If you're curious and would like to put your biologist hat on and learn about moose, climate, and disease firsthand, then I suggest you keep watching. The solution will probably surprise you. Otherwise, I suggest you turn away now. Hey there everyone, welcome to this episode of Gregments Bio. This episode has taken me something like 2 years to start with the idea of it and then film it all and then get to this point where I'm actually presenting it to you today. So for those who have waited so patiently, thank you very much and I'm so sorry. So finally, today, let's learn about moose. Maine has always been a stronghold for moose in the United States. In 2011, we had 76,000 moose. However, 7 years later, now in 2018, we might be as low as 50,000 moose. That's a 34% decline. Once we started seeing this decline here in Maine, a lot of us were very scared. Moose are very valued by many different backgrounds for many different reasons, being hunting or just seeing the animal and anything in between. We love our moose and we were scared when we saw them going away. A multitude of reasons have combined together to cause this decline in moose and form this environmental tornado that has been wiping them out at the southern end of their range and is slowly starting to make their way up. To learn more about this issue, I joined Maine's moose biologist in the field to see firsthand what might be causing the decline of our moose.
My name is Lee Cantor. I'm the state's moose biologist with Maine Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife.
AKA one of the coolest jobs in the world. And we're digging into this moose.
And this is what I do sometimes.
I had to jump a bit ahead there, but as Maine's moose biologist, Lee has a large study going on where he captures moose by netting them from helicopters and attaching these collars. You may recall talking about collars in my AWW episode about telemetry, and this is what they look like. This collar has a special ability. Not only can you track its radio waves just like any other collar, but it will also send a special signal to Lee's phone telling him that the moose wearing the collar had died. Have no worry though, the collar is super lightweight and has the ability to expand and grow with the animal so it doesn't get choked. When we got the signal that 2 moose had died the night before, it was time for us to load up and get miles into the woods by the only means we had. Top of our signal. Alright, now I am in the field. So it's an unreasonably cold day here in April, and I am out here with a few biologists, including Maine's moose biologist, and we are going to look at some moose mortalities to see if we can figure out what is killing the moose.
So we got a calf, what we call a calf. It's a short yearling. She's 11 months old. She was captured in January on the study. So in our 2 study areas in the last 5 years, adult survival is very high, but calves can have a tough time because they, as you'll see, they enter winter with little fat and they get fed on, literally fed on by winter tick that removes blood to the point where it can cause so much internal bleeding that it's a real drain on the moose. You know, we'll weigh her up and that'll be an instantaneous, like, wow, she lost a lot of weight or a little weight, or we'll see.
Oh well. What are you gonna do? Put the butt end in there.
3rd time's a charm.
Ooh.
All right, what do you got?
We're hovering right between 314.8 and 315.2 is what I'm seeing.
Right.
At 315 pounds, this moose had lost about 15% of its body weight since Lee initially captured it when it weighed 360 pounds. A moose this age at this time of year should weigh at least 100 pounds more at around 440 pounds. This is partially due to an immense amount of blood loss, which this moose was showing signs for left and right.
She literally keeled over, which is, you know, some sign of acute death.
Does that happen very often when them keeling over instead of just...
Well, another one we just did a week ago or so, she tipped right over.
And it hardly takes any searching to find our killer.
This is nothing, this feeling of dried blood and stuff, you can see that there's all, see the engorged, look at that. See that? That's all engorged ticks.
Oh yeah.
And there's so many ticks on this moose right here.
Gosh. That
if you were to shave her right here, I mean, this is just, and it's all coming off, and there's no use to, you're not gonna, this is the winter tick in all their glory.
The winter tick is a nasty one. It specializes in infesting moose and can pile on them in such high numbers that they will kill a moose from sucking it so dry of blood. Why is this happening to our moose in Maine right now, and why wasn't it an issue before? This is where climate ties in. Winter tick has been in the Northeast for some time, but it didn't hurt quite this much. That's because of a few things that have worked together to make moose more susceptible to ticks. First and foremost, we had an extremely dense moose population that was ripe for the picking. The more moose that we have, the easier it is for a tick to complete its life cycle and find new hosts. Second, Maine's climate is beginning to see some changes. Winter ticks thrive with wet summers, early snowmelt in the spring, and late snowfall in the winter. While the past few summers have been fairly dry here in Maine, there have been some winters cut short by a very late snowfall or an early snowmelt. The late snowfall gives ticks more time to find a moose to fall onto, and the early snowmelt allows the females that fall off to survive and reproduce. With the climate of the northeastern United States currently changing, it's possible that this problem could get worse in time. The farther south you go, the warmer things get, and that is why our moose in the south have seen twice the amount of tick problems as our moose in the north. After finding the ticks, we collected a few for analysis and carried on with our necropsy and began cutting into the moose to find anything else that may have been important.
Alright, so Cindy, this is Cindy Lauper.
Cindy Lauper.
Cindy Lauper is very handy. We got Cindy Lauper and Molly Hatchet.
Crunching through the ribs. That is just a fantastic sound.
Red, orange.
I'll spare you most of the details, but we did find these worms in the stomach.
Oh yeah, there it is right there.
And not a whole lot else.
Let's put it this way. We cut through the jugular and we did not have an outpouring of blood. Okay. Which would suggest to me that this moose has obviously lost a lot of blood. We have cases with moose that there's so much internal blood loss that we can't get blood for sampling.
We carried on to the second moose of the day, a tiny calf that was even smaller than the first. She lost over 20% of her body weight and weighed only 215 pounds. She was covered in bare spots from trying to rub off the ticks, which still crowded over her and could be seen in the bloody snow around her.
That's all tick.
Surprisingly, she did have enough blood for us to take a sample, so we took some blood, took another tick sample, walked through the entire necropsy process again, and then headed out. So now that we've seen firsthand what exactly is causing the moose's decline, which, to recap, is climate change allowing these ticks to expand north and completely infest on these moose, what is it that we can actually do to help these moose out? So of course there are many things that we could help them out with. For example, stop contributing to climate change, start using public transportation and get more gas efficient cars, start biking more often, use less energy in your home, stuff like that. Some people might ask, well, why aren't we airdropping vaccines or darting them? To tell you the truth, that would be a great idea if it weren't so expensive and work intensive. We cannot go out and dart and vaccinate 50,000 moose. That is just purely impossible to do, and it just won't work. I mean, how do you get a moose to eat a vaccine? How do you get the funds to go out and dart 50,000 moose? That's a real challenge. But the one most interesting solution that I have come across so far is increasing hunting. Now that probably might make some of you say, that's nuts. We're trying to prevent the killing of moose, so why should we kill more moose? This idea is based off of an ecological lesson where a denser population is more susceptible to being wiped out by disease because essentially everyone's closer to each other and you're odds of coming in contact with that fatal disease is much higher. The winter tick thrives more when we have a denser population of moose. That's why it hit like wildfire and spread through the western Maine ecosystem so well. Now, in less dense populations of moose, say like in upstate New York, winter tick is not that big of a problem. So if you have a denser population of moose, it is much more likely to be able to breed and spread to other moose and completely overwhelm the moose population. If we start thinning out the moose population, winter ticks cannot survive. And not only that, thinning out the moose population in turn would make for healthier moose. Now, hunting also helps in two other major ways here. First of all, hunting often takes the form of something that's called compensatory mortality. This basically means that hunting is killing animals that were going to die anyway, which doesn't necessarily mean that the animal that a hunter kills was necessarily going to die soon. It's more of it's taking the place of another animal that was going to die due to things like limited resources. So if we kill a moose before a tick can get to the moose, then that tick will not be able to feed and will not be able to breed. Now, second, hunting is also a major funding source for wildlife conservation in the United States. Anybody who purchases guns or ammo, the taxes on that equipment go right towards wildlife conservation. You don't even have to be a hunter. As long as you're buying guns or ammo, you are contributing to wildlife conservation in the United States. All right, everyone. Well, that is it for this episode today. I really want to thank you for watching, and I hope you found this interesting as I did, because it blew my mind when I first found out about it. If you really liked this episode, please share this video somewhere like on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you want to. Just help get some more exposure to this issue so more people could be educated about it. Also, remember to like or comment or subscribe. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them in the comments below. And with that, I can't wait to see you guys in the next episode. I'm not really sure what the next one's gonna be, but I hope it's as cool as this one. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you all next time.
I do it all and Lee does nothing.